Hey everybody, what's going on? Rob Cesternino back to bring you the recap of Amazing Race 35, episode 4, as we get through the back half of the mega leg. And an interesting leg for sure that we will talk about. Here with us, our chief Amazing Race correspondent, always ready to stand and deliver. It's Jessica Liese. Jess, how are you?
Rob, I'm ready to dive right in as the third prong of the three-pronged head of this podcast.
Yes, sometimes also called an antenna
or an ear. Could
or
be an ear.
Yes. Okay. So we are very happy to be back together once again and be joined by a man who is wearing a costume that he looks like he's wearing pajamas. Mike, are you ready to sleep with the fishes?
Well, here's the thing is that I apologize. I might have to leave this podcast for a bit. I am expecting, of course, my requisite 4 king-size 66-pound mattresses to be delivered at some point. But these people are taking for freaking ever. So I might have to leave in the middle of the podcast.
Yeah, Mike, does your building have an elevator or stairs?
Yeah, it's just sort of like that one shop from Vertigo. That's what I live at the top of. So good luck, Ashley. Hope you don't break all your fingers on the way up.
Yeah. So, well, look, Todd breaks fingers all the time. So it's not that big a deal.
Todd is becoming more and more of an enigma to me. Here's a man who played basketball in Europe for a mystery number of years, breaks his fingers on a notable basis. What is going on with this man?
It happens all the time. Yeah. All right. And we are very sad because one of our faves from season 35, this is like a big blindside here for us, as Jocelyn and Victor go out here on this leg of the race. They opened it up with 2 first place finishes and then ultimately end up 10th place on the first half of the mega leg and then end up in last place. And so Jocelyn and Victor check out early.
It was really sad to see them go. I think this is the biggest fall from grace we've seen probably since Rob and Amber in season 11. I would say.
Yeah.
This was hard to watch, and they had every opportunity to come back from it, and it just didn't really happen for them. And I'm going to be excited to talk to them tomorrow. I just wish we were talking to them much, much later on.
Yeah, we will have exit press. Jess and I will have an interview with them. Mike, I'm sure you will talk to them as well for parade.com. But they're so fun. I really, really love them. I had said, I wanted to hang out with them, that they just seem great. I would shop at their store.
I mean, apparently, you could walk through the fish section and Victor could point out every single detail, including like the life experience of every fish that he has. This has been one of my favorite runners throughout the season of The Amazing Race, has been Victor and Jocelyn getting every task and being like, how does this apply to the grocery store that we manage? So I'm really sad we'll be missing out on that.
Well,
as well
in
as
fairness,
just the content.
a lot of the tasks on The Amazing Race are go fill a shopping list.
Yeah, we talk about flight attendants having a leg up advantage, but could grocery store managers be a very 5-hole auxiliary team?
To be fair, they sit in confessionals and production is constantly asking literally every single person, why is The Amazing Race like the thing that you do for a living? Because we have so many sound bites of like, The Amazing Race is like the NFL. The Amazing Race is like the dance studio. The Amazing Race is like being a podcaster. And that's part and parcel, but it's just a lucky coincidence that I think that many of the recent tasks have not been a terrible reach to come up with that analogy.
Yeah. If we have any like Instacart drivers that work that listen to the podcast, apply for The Amazing Race.
Well, listen, Garrett's a UPS driver. That's like a neighboring.
Yeah, where's Freight Train? Yeah. What season is Tough as Nails on?
We just finished 5.
5, right? I feel like that they should have saved Tough as Nails 5 for the fall of 5s, where it would have been Tough as Nails 5, Survivor 45, Amazing Race 35, Big Brother 25. And what's on season 15?
To be fair, we didn't Tough as Nails like kind of go into August, September, so like it was fall adjacent, I would say.
Yeah. Okay, fall adjacent. I think it actually. Yeah, I think it kicked off Big Brother. I think it ended right before Big Brother, if I recall. But anyway, very sad to see them go. Can we go back to, Victor, at the big as Mike called it before we came on, crapshoot roadblock that we were dealing with.
Relatively. This wasn't, we'll talk about it later. It wasn't complete needle in a haystack, infamously, like we saw in Amazing Race 6. There was some skill involved, but still, you were searching for one tile amongst, what did Phil say, hundreds?
Yeah. Did Victor find the right tile and then say, oh no, that's not it?
It's possible. I think that's a question you're going to have to get out of him.
I gotta find that out, because there was one point when he looked at one and then there was like something circled, and I'm like, oh wait, is that actually the right one?
Yeah, well, because he said after he found it, oh, there were just paint splotches on it. So maybe it was this like pen holderness level of overthinking of like, well, technically this isn't completely accurate because that has paint splotches on it and this one doesn't. But just due to the shoddy craft work, I suppose, of a worker, Victor may have been eliminated because of it.
Well, I thought this was a photo of that exact tile. So paint splotches should show up on it, right?
You would think so, but we'll find out.
Unless maybe someone came through the day of, between when they took the photo, it was like Three Stooges style, like, oh, I'm supposed to paint that bench, but I painted one of these tiles. Hope it doesn't screw anybody.
Maybe some tourist had like an ice pop and like touched it.
That's always a possibility.
I mean, could that be a fun way to sabotage the competition a bit? Annalie saw Garrett's, saw
They call that on Buddy Games a curveball.
There we go. Saw Joel's panel. Could she have like put a couple splotch marks on it to try to really Victor Joel and make him think like, no, that can't be it. It's got gunk all over it.
Are we now advocating for people defacing a religious shrine in service of winning the Amazing Race?
Yeah.
To be fair, was it in Vietnam that kid did that in the 90s and got caned as a result, or was that
was Singapore?
That was Singapore.
Yeah, he got flogged, right?
Yep, he got caned. That was the phrase that was used. But
yes.
I mean, already I thought it was a little bit uncomfortable that they sent people into a religious shrine and asked them to wish for winning the Amazing Race. That was already a little strange.
I was obsessed with that. I'm like, wow, okay, let's see who's the selfish bastards in this group and who's wishing for world peace.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, thank you to at least Todd for wishing for world peace. Maybe if a few more Amazing Race teams were a little less selfish, world would be a better place. What did Jocelyn and Victor wish for? Do we know?
They wished for...
No paint splotches?
I believe they wished for winning the Amazing Race as well.
Yeah. I know that Team Philly, they wished to win this leg of the Amazing Race, and like 5 teams had already checked in at that point.
Yeah. You got to sort of listen, you shoot for the stars so you land on the moon, or whatever the phrase is.
They did do well. They did.
Sometimes you want to aim high, but yeah, I did love just the sliding scale of wishes, considering like how sweet and holistic the Joel and Garrett was versus, again, half the teams that were like, give me that money, bitch.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about this leg. This was the back half of this leg that we were going on through all of Vietnam. And we had to head out to the cafe to pick up a coffee, which was good for some teams who love coffee.
This had to be the ultimate letdown because literally everybody who went into that coffee shop thought they were getting a coffee related task or at least a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And literally none of them actually got that. Like you saw like Joe and Ian in particular are like, oh my God, coffee. So exciting.
Yeah.
You're going to do this one, right? And then they open the clue and it's like, go somewhere else.
Well, that begs the question though. They were given some money for this leg. Steve and Annalie, we heard that at the end of the last episode. Could they have like bought a coffee from the cafe and scarfed it down? There was so much killer fatigue in this episode. I feel like it's necessary.
Well, we joked last week that it was going to be that the prize for winning the mega leg. Like you don't get a trip, but here's a Red Bull. I mean, it would have been nice for.
Well, I mean, if this was Amazing Race Canada, it would be a Guru Energy.
There we go.
They just chug those things the whole time.
Yeah. Okay. So the teams would then head to the detour, stand or deliver.
Which is, I think for me, top 5 detour names in Amazing Race history. So freaking good. The Edward James Olmos fan in me was just titillated.
Yeah.
I mean, my entire exposure to Stand and Deliver as a film is the South Park episode with Cartman asking how he reaches the kids.
All right. So stand or deliver. We're going to sort out the fish. I feel like we've done a lot of this already in Amazing Race 35. No?
There's a lot of putting things in order, like
Putting
making
things
a
in
thing.
order, running around markets. Like, I feel like that.
Yeah, but this
I
one
feel like this
has
is the third episode in a row where we like, okay, go through markets and like get a bunch of assorted grocery items.
Yeah, but at least there's like different twists on at least these last two. I do agree the detour in episode 2 was a little bit of a nothing burger. Last time at least we had the traffic jam of boats, and then this time around we get like the fun pastiche of having people get really ooky while handling live fish.
Yeah. Yeah. Shades of the slime eels coming into play here.
Oh, I was ready for like the secretions to happen.
Yeah, didn't really have too much, didn't get too sloppy with the fish or deliver. This was the task of delivering 4 quote unquote mattresses up the stairs to a hotel. Mike, I don't know about you, but I'm not hoping to stay at this hotel anytime soon with this 1-inch thick 66-pound mattress.
Oh, definitively. Not only that, you're just allowing these like random American people to haul these things up and down the stairs, not even letting them in the elevator. This is a 1-star service at best.
Mm-hmm.
Did not look comfortable.
No, it didn't look great. Just are you hiring any of these teams to help you move anytime soon?
I think I will never again live in a building with no elevators. So
Smart.
Yeah. I would hire Liam and Yeremy to do it. Joe and Ian I would hire for like the fun of it, just to hear them, complain about it the entire time. But when it comes to like actual workmanship, yeah, give me the 2 buff boys.
Yeah. I mean, did this hotel like were they ordering mattresses? Like what I'm assuming this hotel did need these mattresses because it seemed like a lot of work to move them all out of this hotel.
Especially because the truck was so far away from the hotel as well.
But this is the eternal question. Whenever you have a task on the Amazing Race that purports to be doing something that somebody else would normally be doing as their job,
yeah,
the question then becomes, is this work that somebody else doesn't have to do now? Or are they going to mangle this so badly that this is entirely written off?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In this case, I think you could probably keep the mattresses. They didn't look like anybody dropped them on the ground. They were covered in plastic.
Yeah, they had to get them to different rooms, right? They got like different room assignments to get them to. It wasn't like one room had all the mattresses.
No, I don't know. It seems like when like Joel and Garrett came in, like they like piled the mattresses on top of each other, I thought.
Well, they had there were multiple beds in each room.
Okay.
And I think we probably saw them come in on like their second or third trip.
Okay. So we had some fun. We'll go through how all the teams did going through these tasks. But I thought that deliver was a pretty good task.
It's like this episode, in my opinion, was really like quintessential Amazing Race. I really do feel like the start of this season was a little slow, but I feel like we have really gotten into our groove in Vietnam. I really enjoyed last week, and I really, really enjoyed this week because to me, this is the Amazing Race. It is the schadenfreude of these people who are exhausted, on very little sleep, uncomfortable, hungry, sweaty, and then having to do these like very complicated, taxing things, both physically and later mentally. It's very much why I would never want to go onto this show. And it's why I've enjoyed the show, honestly, for going on 20 plus years. And so much like last week, bringing back the flight drama was very old school. I felt like this kind of brought us back to that pre-COVID era where like they've been going for a full day. They're not stopping. They're already pushed to their limits and it's like 4.
I don't want to jinx it or anything, but is it worth just doing like an overall like CBS vibes check in terms of like the Amazing Race seems to have made like a conscious effort in this season to try to bring in some things that people wanted from like more classic Amazing Race, Survivor 2, Big Brother, maybe not as much, but they did do the pressure cooker. There were a couple of different things that they have brought back that were throwbacks here. Is this like a coincidence, or do we think that this is more some kind of like top-down direction?
They're kind of hemorrhaging viewers at this point. Like every season, it's just a few fewer people that are like, okay, this isn't appointment television for me anymore. I'm going to move on. And they're not picking up any new people. So it's like, could we bring people back into the fold that remember this fondly from 15 years ago
Mm-hmm.
by making this something that people talk about a lot? Like, we're going to use the old buzzwords like bunching and killer fatigue. And it does make you a little bit nostalgic. And
Okay.
I think this is an era in which we all want to be very nostalgic for the before times.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that a lot of it probably comes from the new runtime as well, that both Survivor 45 and Amazing Race 35 were specifically produced with 90-minute runtimes. And perhaps it allows us to realize that maybe these showrunners are not as completely moved on from the past as we thought. I think we look at some of those production decisions that are made on both of these shows and think, okay, they don't want to bring back anything from old school stuff. They just want to stay rooted in the new era. But it does seem like from both shows' perspectives, like there were things that they didn't want to abandon necessarily. And so they feel like they have a little bit of extra money to spend, in a way of speaking, with an extra 30 minutes of television. So they're going to bring back some stuff.
Okay. We talked about the teams then go to the route marker to go and cast their wish. And then finally, they were going to go off to the roadblock to end up doing this basically finding the unique tile in this area that has hundreds of these red tiles. Just do you like a task like this?
I love a good needle in a haystack.
Mhm.
And I think the show they've used them more sparingly in recent years.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy people stressing out. And especially I liked this one because so many people found the first tile that looked sort of like the one in their hand.
Oh, this is
And
easy.
they thought, oh, this is super easy.
I love that happened multiple times. They're like, this can't be the first one. I think it's the first one. It's not the first one. Okay. This is a crash course in what to notice.
But I would love it. Boy, would I love it if at some point they had a task like this and it literally was the first one. It's like
Yeah.
the equivalent of those things that your teacher used to give you in elementary school where it would say at the top, please read all of the instructions before starting work. And then it's like all these ridiculous things. And at the end, it's like, don't do any of these things. Bring it back to your teacher.
Yeah. I love the judge on this task. He was great. He had like a really great delivery. He had like all of the staples that you want from a judge on one of these Amazing Race tasks. He also had, Mike, he was a great faker outer.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, him and Derek X and Claire are very good at the nonsensical statement of, like, I'm so sorry. That is correct.
Yeah. But he really sold it with his body language. He's like, I'm so sorry. Like, you're right. He was good, this guy.
I don't think any of the task judges were slouches this leg. Like, I loved the woman at the fish detour too.
Mm-hmm.
I love how exuberant she was.
Yeah,
And
no,
they
I
double
do think,
thumbs.
I was going to say, I'm glad that she went with the double thumbs because I think she had to go with that initially because didn't she, like, tell Steve and Annalie, like, something like no, and they're like, but wait, is it a no? And she actually had to symbolize it. So she's like, okay, for these Americans, there's a language barrier. Clearly the thumbs up or thumbs down is universal. I mean, yeah, I really enjoyed, to Jess's point, these needle in a haystack. But again, I'm not going to say, like, completely luck-based because there was still some skill involved in, like, trying to match it up. And as we saw with someone like Victor, you could walk right past it, apparently, and still not get it. But, I mean, it's always tough to one-up in recent seasons the infamous Oracle of Delphi Dusty breakdown moment. But there was a lot here. I was super surprised. Rob, I know you joked last time of the whole dead last thing with Liam and Yeremy of like,
yeah,
all right, there's only a certain amount you could really catch up when you're last on a mega leg. But like,
they took a lot of exception to that.
Yeah, this was the great equalizer. And again, I said it last week. I'll say it this week. I want variance on the Amazing Race. Like, obviously, I prefer people to show off their racing skills, so I don't want everything to be completely blind luck. But at the same time, to see where we went to from the first two episodes to where we went to in the end of episode 3 to where we went to in the end of episode 4, that's what the race should be, ideally.
Yeah. I mean, this was really exciting because you had basically like Phil is there and the mat, and you can see him and he's right there. And you have all like maybe like 6, 7 teams there. Any of them could have ended up finishing in first place. And we did have like a team that you probably would not have expected ending up finishing in first place just because they got to their thing first. And this was really exciting. And it was also like, okay, well, these teams that have run such a great race, could get eliminated here because they can't find the thing.
Yeah, I don't think this is down to blind luck necessarily. I think there's definitely some strategy to this, and there's some ways you can do it wrong for sure. I think the not being able to spot what the differences are is a pretty key one. And then I was thinking a bit about once you find it, you got to go back and get the guy and bring him back to it. And I noticed in particular, we had one of the teams, I think it was Liam, who gets his water bottle and puts it down in front of the tile and then goes to gets the
That's
guy.
really smart. But then do you be one of those people and like move it somewhere else once he leaves?
Oh.
That
Well,
you know who would do that? Robin and Chelsea, the heartless witches.
Oh, they're cutthroat. I think you're not allowed. Wasn't there like that whole kerfuffle in season 18 with the moving the bags? You're not allowed to touch other people's stuff.
Yeah, I think that happened also with like Michael and Mark, the stuntmen in season 14. They're like, you're not supposed to touch either challenge props or personal property of other people.
Yep.
Yeah. But I thought that this was like really exciting in terms of the way it was all set up. And then there was like some like tension between the teams that were working together or not.
Yeah, because that's also a really interesting tactic as well, which is, you know, unlike that infamous sauerkraut roadblock from season 32, they all don't have the same answer. And so it is also an interesting back and forth of like, okay, do you try to look out for someone else's as well in exchange for now having two sets of eyes on things and getting to see like how specific teams respond to it? I think some people took as like a big hint as to whether or not they're going to play nice for the rest of the race.
Although I think you had to be so detail focused. Like, I don't know how you could be on the lookout for your thing and also another team's thing.
Annalie was able to do it somehow.
Yeah. She's like, I think that was Todd's thing, but I'm not going to tell him.
Yeah, nobody's calling her cutthroat.
No. But she is very fun and good leg of the race for Steve and Anna. Let's talk through some of these teams in greater detail and bring this all into focus. And let's talk about our first team to arrive. It's Robin and Chelsea, and maybe they're not here to make friends.
But they're here to make a trip to Madrid.
They're already friends. Yeah.
Where the hell did this come from? Like, I know they shot up in the rankings. Obviously, they left the pit stop last in the technically last leg of the race. They were able to make their way up to like the middle-ish bit of the pack in the beginning of the mega leg. And here, due to, I suppose, Chelsea's copious amount of Find It phone games while she's, quote, snoogling with her daughter.
Jess, what is a Find It phone game?
I think it's like a
Where's Waldo?
It's like a Where's Waldo situation. There's a lot of these phone games that they show like a room full of stuff and it's like, where is the candle? And you have to click on the candle. And they're usually like they're mini puzzles that are sandwiched in between like a bunch of match 3 puzzles.
Okay. All right. So Find It, hidden object games on the App Store. Good prep for the Amazing Race. Put it in the JL rules.
I don't know how often this comes up.
Yeah. Okay.
But,
all right.
Yeah, I love this. This came out of nowhere. I know we got sort of like the very tragic backstory of Robin a couple of episodes ago. We found out a little bit more about their friendship about an episode later, but I feel like I was definitely not getting the first place edit from them in this episode at all, like we usually get with teams. So I'm happily surprised by that. But I really think I mentioned this last week that the "we're not here to make friends" soundbite could mean if and when the U-turn comes up, that they're going to be the ones thrown up there. We see this happen this week, and it looks like next week they're not making things better for themselves either. So I feel like that's going to become, and especially now that they've got a first place victory, people could perceive them as some front runners as well. So I think that's looking more and more likely as the weeks progress.
Yeah. So we got where Chelsea, she had the interaction with Annalie. Annalie tried to go and work with her, and Chelsea kind of brushed her off in the heat of the moment. And Annalie said, okay, well, obviously, last time I'm going to try to work with her.
This is so funny, though, because you have Annalie saying, like, this is like the meme of Annalie, why won't you work with me, Chelsea? Also, Annalie, I think I saw Todd's tile, but I'm not telling you.
Yeah.
I think it was at that point, like, I'm assuming it played out in that order, the order that was shown. I would imagine she's like, "Ha, screw you, Todd, I'm not gonna find your tile." And then, like, as time went on and more teams got there, she's like, "Oh, crap. The chance of me getting first place is getting slimmer and slimmer. Chelsea, can I work with you?" And then it turns out that, yeah, roundabout's fair trade, and Chelsea's like Chelsea didn't say no, but she had the most vague reasoning possible, like, no, there's just a lot of things as a part of it that makes it complicated." Like, at least say no. At least have the audacity to look her in the eye and be like, "No, can't do it."
This reminds me, and I don't want to dredge up any bad memories, Rob, but this
Uh-oh.
is like every final 3 endurance challenge on Survivor where one person is like, "Hey, are you ready to make a deal?" And then the other person is trying to let them down easy because they think they can still win it.
Yeah, let's just play it out. Like, okay, all right, get back to me. So, remember when we had final 3 endurance challenges on Survivor?
I think Chelsea just said game on.
Yeah. All right. So for Robin and Chelsea, they had 2 11th place finishes to open things up before moving up in the first half of the Mega League. Do we think that they could keep the momentum going now with a first place finish?
I think it depends on what's in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
But they've shown that they've got the chops, and these have not been they haven't been all the way out of it at any point. They haven't done something so colossally stupid and it's like, how are they still even here? They've just had a couple of things go wrong for them. And then when things go right for them, they are able to come out on top. And I guess that is a total nothing burger of an answer, Rob, because
Yeah.
things go well, you do well, and things go badly, you do badly. But I haven't seen them screw anything up on their own so badly that I worry for their future in the race. I think they're going to be good all around racers.
Yeah, I just like trying to figure out, did they get very lucky here, or did they sort of like have like a, a little bit of a slow start, but now have figured things out?
I think it's the latter. I mean, we have to really take the first 2 legs as piecemeal because, again, out of the 13 teams, only 2 swapped places in the first 2 legs. So it basically was one big mega leg across Thailand. And so they maintained their spot there. Yes, they were second to last in the second leg in Thailand, but it still seemed like they were pretty much always ahead of Elizabeth and Ileana. They had some issues navigating there. But I think the fact that they had moved up into like a pretty respectable spot into 5th place, jumping 6 places from one leg to the next, is something that is commendable. I do think that if they're given enough leeway, they can be really good racers. And it just so happens that the first 2 legs were basically dictated by those 2 original flights that happened once they left LA. And now that they had that equalizer, I mean, what I found really interesting was as long as these teams weren't like held back from this stop and start pit stop, they were all within an hour of each other. I believe that Stephen, Annalie, and Liam and Yeremy were exactly 1 hour apart. And so again, compare that time frame to the 2 flights that separated these teams for the first 2 legs, and you can again see why things got mixed up a lot more is because I think these teams in the back of the pack got more room to play and mix it up.
Okay. For Robin and Chelsea, congratulations winning this leg of the Amazing Race. Let's talk about our second place team. Okay, it's Steve and Annalie, who I think probably had a little bit more story all through the episode because they were really from the front of the pack, leading most of the way through, and then came up just short, coming in second. And of course, we saw Annalie mixing. Annalie at the fish market was very fun. Having some not such a great time there sorting through the eels, that ultimately that she was also missing the bucket of eels to get through, and then was pretty memorable going through looking for the red tile.
Yeah, she had a really high visibility episode this week. I feel bad for this team because they won the last leg and they didn't get a prize for it.
Yeah.
And they kind of lampshade this as they're setting off at the start of the leg. It's like, well, we got to get first again so we can get a prize. And it's like, just give people a prize when it's a mega leg. Like, stop pretending that you're not going to have any legs where nobody gets eliminated. with the asterisk that we're calling this a mega leg. Just give people, when you see Phil, if you're the first person to see Phil, you get a prize.
Even like a little, like, here's a to-go box with a sandwich.
Yeah, or like
Even just something, yeah.
On the Ukrainian version of Amazing Race,
Yeah.
back in the day, the leg prizes were pretty small time. They would typically get a case of Carlsberg beer at the end of the leg, and the host would just hand it to them.
Doesn't that slow them down?
I don't know, man. I maybe it's like handicapping the front runner to try to even things out.
Yeah, that would be a fun curveball.
Maybe like a beer helmet, Jess.
Yeah, you have to put beer goggles onto the last place team, and they have to run the leg like that.
I mean, I've often advocated for they should have a face-off / head-to-head, and it should be beer pong.
Okay. Jess, let me ask you a question about Steve and Annalie. Is Steve kind of at risk of being the Gary of this team? I mean, I feel like that Annalie is the one who's been like all the personality. I feel like we haven't seen too much from Steve.
Yeah, he's got some Gary downside, I have to say. And this is a season where we don't have that many of those. So I think by not sticking out, he is sticking out.
Well, I think it's interesting. I'm going to invoke another Gary. I think he might be the Gary of a Gary and Mallory, which was another, I think, very similar type of team. It was a father and daughter. It was like the very energetic, bubbly younger girl and this sort of very solid but more demure dad. And I feel like we're getting the same thing going on here, where Steve is just kind of there at the moment. We should also, I feel like, go through what everyone's wishes are.
Oh, yes, please.
So Robin and Chelsea wish to win the Amazing Race because they're just so freaking cutthroat. And Steve and Annalie, I believe, wish to be team number 1 this week.
So close.
Yeah, they were afraid to wish big.
Yeah. But they've been really, really fun, and looking for. I think they have found their place on the race. That I feel like that they're a team that I'm buying. Steve and Annalie. They had 2 6th place finishes to open things up, but really end up like 1 and 2 across the mega leg. So I think that they figured it out.
Yeah, I think it's really fun that we have all these teams that finish towards the back in the early days. And we're not stratifying the teams right away. Like we're not saying, it has to be one of these top 5 teams that finished in the front of the first leg because the other teams never catch up. We've had so much mixing so far, and I think that's really fun.
Yeah, and that's another reason, again, why I really like this season so far. Is like, that's what you want in a season of reality TV. Yes, there are almost always going to be teams that are more favored or players that are more favored to win just based on like their backgrounds, experience, skills, etc. But by and large, games should be designed in a way that everyone has at least a semi-equal chance of winning it. And I think getting to see teams like Steve and Annalie, and to a certain extent, Robin and Chelsea, Joel and Garrett, do really well in these legs, when usually we're looking to the buff bros as the ones that will always do well in this show, goes to show that that's good design from my perspective.
Yeah, it's good design and it's good casting, I think, because we have seen teams, and I'm not going to name any of them, but we've seen teams on The Amazing Race that are clearly not cast with the intention of this team is contenders to win. And I think any of the teams left could plausibly pull out a win.
Okay, let's talk about our 3rd place team, and that was Todd and Ashley, and we got to have some fun with them on this leg of the race. Todd and Ashley, they chose to deliver the mattresses. I believe that Ashley is the only woman who participated in that. It was basically Todd and Ashley and all of the double male teams that went ahead and did this. Poor Ashley thinks she may have a broken finger.
I mean, we have seen racers run on worse, but obviously considering how much dexterity and hand-eye coordination is important in The Amazing Race, I don't know if this will be Chekhov's broken finger, if this will get tended to, if Ashley was maybe just cramping more so in her hand because she's like, look at how my fingers bent. We didn't see the fingers, so I'm not entirely sure how grave the injury is, but for their sake, I'm hoping not, because I just need to find out more about who Todd is as a person.
Okay.
Yeah, this isn't Survivor. A finger injury can't take you out of the game.
No.
We might see her in a splint next leg, but I think it's possible she just jammed it because you can hurt your finger pretty badly without actually breaking it.
Okay, so Todd and Ashley, they were moving the mattresses, and they were, going through it. They were taking the approach of one mattress at a time, as opposed to a couple of the other teams that tried to do two at a time. Mike, we heard a lot of references to pivoting in the stairwell. Was this?
Which felt
Yes?
a little odd. Like, that's granted, the show is very much off the air at this point, nearly 2 decades. But like, doesn't it feel weird referencing a rival network's cash cow of a show?
Yeah. Well, do we think that was explicitly a Friends reference?
I
Had to
mean,
be.
I think
Okay.
it was either Todd or Corey who like expressly yelled out pivot in the way that Ross does. Like, even if you say the word pivot, it always has a connotation to that
Mhm.
show.
Look, Mike, these networks and everything, like the CBS network just aired an episode of Frasier on Tuesday night this week.
That's
so that in the multiverse, up is down, down is up.
And I mean, given that all these shows are in syndication, you don't know what network somebody watched it on. And we also don't know when in time he caught it. He could have been watching Friends at 6 p.m. on CBS.
Now,
Mhm.
could this be, to Rob's point, a possible prognostication of Viacom CBS's next big acquisition? Are they getting the Friends reboot?
I don't know. I think it will come down to what studio produced Friends, and I believe
we
that
know
was Warner Brothers.
Yeah,
so I don't
because they
think.
did do the reunion on Max.
Yeah, so I don't know if you're going to pry it from the Warner Brothers hands.
All the media companies are eventually going to be one super conglomerate at some point anyway.
Okay, well that'll be fun then, and so we'll see if we get. I don't know.
I'm
what are we rooting
anti-monopoly,
for?
Rob.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a
But
terrible
what if
game.
it? Yeah. What if it meant a Friends? The cast of Friends reuniting on buddy games.
All right, I would watch that. Just don't put them on The Amazing Race, okay?
Should the next season of Buddy Games be like a battle of the network stars where we have
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought that was basically what Buddy Games was, except that nobody was a network star.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah.
and you know what specifically? Like, yes, you could bring on like the cast of The Big Bang Theory who all hated each other, but like get reality show contestants there, right? Like they did this with a season of The Challenge like 10 years back. Do like Team Amazing Race, and put like Rachel
Yeah.
Riley and some of her biggest detractors on a team.
By the way, do you know that there's an Amazing Racer on Buddy Games?
I heard that. I heard he was in your DMs.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe it was Andrew from season 3.
Yes, of
Mhm.
Dennis and Andrew.
Famously used a fast forward and still came in last place on the leg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but 21 years old on the season 3 of The Amazing Race and is now part of Team Pride on Buddy Games.
It's impressive. I love that he's made a comeback. He's coming home to CBS again.
Mhm.
Good for him.
Welcome home. Okay. All right. Todd and Ashley. And is this their best leg of The Amazing Race
Yeah.
for Todd and Ashley?
They've been one of the most consistent, I would say. They were in the lead of the pack. They were 5th in the first 2 legs, shot up 1 spot to 4th. And I think just being consistent and nudging ahead of a couple of other teams that faltered a bit in the roadblock allowed them to get, as Phil said, on the podium. So I think that's good for them as well. We'll talk about them as well as the next team who actually fell, or that next couple teams that fell in the ratings. But still, the fact that in this topsy-turvy past couple of legs, they have been one of the most consistently performing teams, I think is good, despite the fact that they externally freak out about a bunch of stuff. When they're actually going through it to a point that Jess has made in the past few weeks, like they're actually able to get the task done very well.
Okay. Another team that shot up this week, it was Joe and Ian coming in 4th place, their highest finish so far on this season of the race after starting off 9th and then a pair of 7th place finishes. And now here they are in 4th place. They were the first team to pioneer the double mattress carrying.
Well, I think they're JL rules conversant because they're talking about how if you have a task that involves some kind of puzzle solving or detail orientation and you don't know how objective the judging is going to be versus a task you can just like physically beast your way through. If you're a physical beast, do the physical beast task every time.
Yeah,
However, there used to being physical beasts in an air-conditioned gym.
But they still did a great job. It was difficult, but it wasn't impossible.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting though, Rob, is you go through their placements, but let's remember the wackadoo first leg they had here in Vietnam, where because of the flight mishap, they wind up in like 1st place. But then they fall behind in the market because they left that piece of the photo behind. Where like now they're in the back of the pack. So there's so much up and down with this team. I think much like their own personalities and moods, it makes it immensely enjoyable. And it is kind of odd to see them in fourth place. Like after everything they've been through, they kind of bounce up slightly to the top at the end of Vietnam. I have no idea what it means for their longevity. Like, it means that they could be able to gain some sort of consistency and do well for the rest of the leg, or they could be out next week. I'm not sure.
I feel like that they're like the most like high variance team that we have on the board, where, you know, they could have a leg where they just completely ace it and end up in first, and they could also, things could just go sideways for them.
Yeah, I think this is the team that I feel like is most likely to have a field elimination. Like, I think this is the team that's most likely to get caught up on something and have Phil have to come out and tell him it's time to go home.
Yeah.
We should also mention, by the way, so I believe Todd and Ashley, of course, went with the pageant answer. They wished for world peace.
Oh, yes. Okay. That was good.
And Joe and Ian wished, they went long term. They wished for first place on the race in general.
Okay. To win the entire race.
So they were going a bit more than like the Andrea and Malaina route of like, okay, we know we're kind of in the back. We took a long time on the vinyl decal. So like, we'll probably survive this one. So if we have to put good juju out there, let's do it for the final leg, not for this one.
Okay. All right. There's Joe and Ian in fourth place. Let's talk about Rob and Corey. And for Rob and Corey, this is actually their worst finish so far through the Amazing Race, as they slipped to 5, but not too much to be concerned about. Rob and Corey did the deliver task, and you know, honestly, I was a little concerned for Rob for doing the deliver task. I thought this might be, you know, a challenge, because these teams have to, you know, put these mattresses like over their head, and you really aren't able to see. I thought that maybe there might be some like communications issues with Rob and Corey. I thought that it worked out well, that really they ended up just having to follow the teams that knew where they were going originally.
Yeah, and they also, you see Rob actually communicating verbally with Corey.
Yeah.
So they just stick him in the front, and Corey can hear him, even though he can't hear Corey. So I thought that was really smart.
And that is a little bit, you know, it kind of steers like a boat, right? Where like the person who's in the back is the one that's doing the most navigation. So I think it makes sense to put Corey back there so that if he is responding to the environment, he is the one to be able to do that. And, you know, Rob can be the one to just kind of surge forward. I mean, the only reason why they finished 5th is because like Corey wasn't able to spot the tile before a couple of other people.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that you had the first 5 teams were all on the mat at the exact same time.
Oh, yeah, I was curious about that, because it felt like we had this whole fanfare with Robin and Chelsea, and then in come, you know, Steve and Annalie and Ashley and Todd, and like, they're still on the mat, so I don't know if they were all finishing within like minutes of each other. We'll find out next week, or if it was just like, hey, Robin and Chelsea, can you stay here for a few minutes just to like make the picture happen so we can make Corey really fall on his face by not being able to count to 5?
Yeah, I thought that Phil was really trying to mix it up with them, of like, all right, what number are we? All right, let's count.
And they don't know. Maybe all 4 of the other teams checked in well before this, and we just didn't see them. You don't know.
Do we have a name for the person that Phil goes to like bust their shoes on the mat?
Oh, I mean, that was the Alex, right? Famously of Alex and Connor in season 30.
What was it? I think it was the Connor, actually.
Oh, no, it was Connor. It was Connor, yeah, because Alex was the driver, right? And Connor was sort of like the come with guy, the Ann Gary.
Yeah, he was the Ann Gary.
And did he also sleep on his couch also? And that Phil really took a lot of exception to that? Like basically calling him a loser.
Yeah, because he lived with Alex. Sorry. Connor was the famous race car driver. Alex was the one that lived with him.
Okay. Well, I couldn't remember which one Phil was constantly busting his chops.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite tropes from The Amazing Race. So I love to see it. Rob and Corey, I think, are going to be fine.
Corey, probably the most interesting wish was that he wants to see one country every year that he's alive.
One country every year that he's alive. Okay. Jess, good wish or bad wish?
I think he's really underplaying the number of countries to go to. Like, there's 192 nation states. He's not going to live to be 192. Is he just like writing off half the world?
Yeah. So is he already at this pace? Like, say somebody like myself, who has had more years than countries. Can I make up a bunch of countries?
I feel like that's going
Or
to
is
be
it
the name
only,
of
like-
the name of Phil Kogan's autobiography, by the way. It's going to be more years than countries.
Well, Phil's
Yeah,
definitely
he's got more countries than years.
he's got more countries than years. I think Corey probably does
No
have more
country
countries
for
than
old man.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because
Corey, as
did-
someone who has traveled around the world twice.
Yeah, that's what he said last week,
Yeah.
right? So, like, I think he's got a good amount there. So I think for him, like, there might be only a select few he wants to check off the bucket list. So he's like, all right, let me hedge my bets here. Let me taper off a smidge.
I'm gonna wish for more years than countries in existence.
Yeah, but then you end up with like a Peter Pan scenario, you know,
Mhm.
the price of immortality.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, none of the vampires seem very happy with their lot in life.
Is it like a curse? Like, do I have to like, okay, if I can get to 7 more countries, I can live 7 more years?
Well, what do you think the story of the roaming gnome is? It's exactly that.
Wow.
He was cursed, turned into a porcelain gnome, and forced to travel to every country in the world before his soul was set free.
Wow.
That's
okay.
dark. And what happens if new countries happen while he's on this quest?
Yeah, more
Like,
years.
did he have to go to like East Timor, South Sudan?
Okay. Let's check out team number 6. Look at this, the miracle finish. They were only mostly dead.
They said
Leaving Yeremy.
They
It's
said
spooky season.
They said to blave, which means to love. Because listen, my thoughts about this team rose like their ranks. I've done a complete 180 on Liam and Yeremy from last week to this. Like, listen, I feel a bit callous in saying this, but like we had heard over the past few episodes, like, yeah, we weren't really good. We didn't get along. And I was like, give us specifics. And we got specifics this week. Pretty tragically, you know, hearing this heartbreaking story about Yeremy going off to boot camp and writing all these letters to Liam of support. And Liam's like, return to sender, never contact me again. And I just felt like their hearts were so open. I found out so much about them this like, and they were also like pretty snarky as well. Like when they're standing by waiting for a cab, they're like, we're pretty sure we're in first place at this point.
In our hearts.
They really warmed up to me in this episode, much like Joe and Ian were moving those mattresses.
Yeah, I thought they were getting the personal story bump and ultimately come in last place. But they took so much exception. I think that Phil really fueled them when he said, not only are you last, you're dead last. No way, Phil. Because what did they say? That they said that they were going to have to kill it because they were dead last time.
Yeah, and then I love that they threw it back in Phil's face when they finished. They said, screw
like,
you, Phil.
Where are we, Phil? Yeah.
And Phil's like, that was my motivational tactic the entire time.
Yeah,
So
you played right into Phil's hands.
I wanted to make you guys believe in yourselves.
Yeah. Mike, what did they wish for?
They wished for
I think
they wanted to run the whole race together.
Yeah, they wanted to make it to the end because they very much like the Morgan and Lena was like, hey, the money would be nice, but we want to be able to race together this entire time. We're trying to find out more about each other.
Yes, that's Monkey's Paw. That sounds like a 3rd place finish to me.
Yeah, and it might be one of those 3rd place finishes where you fall out of it and they never see you until
bad wish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did say they wanted to wish to keep killing it. So true to the Monkey's Paw, maybe murder will be a foul on the Amazing Race 35.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, maybe they get the merch going, Team Dead Last, and then people they're gonna have like a whole like that basically you can't what you cannot kill may never die. Is that right?
What is dead may never die.
Yeah.
What is dead last may never die.
Yeah, and sort of like the family that does the Greyjoys, like they sort of disappeared from the picture for a while, and all of a sudden they're very important. They showed up to the scene.
Okay. All right. And I felt that Yeremy is a real like Game of Thrones Song of Ice and Fire name, right?
And he does kind of look like he died in the Battle of the Bastards.
Yeah, it's like one name off from like a common name. Like,
yeah.
You know. Okay. Yes.
Yeremy Storm, the bastard son of Ned Stark.
All right. So congratulations to Liam and Yeremy. Big bump up this week. All right. Let's talk about Andrea and Malaina, Team Philly. And we had thought that maybe that they were going to have some problems at the fish market. They were really struggling, but they were one of the teams, Mike, that really like found their like X marks the spot very quickly.
I still have no idea what to think of these two. We're like, they were such big personalities and they pop in some places. Malaina definitely seemed to have one of the most uncomfortable reactions to handling the live fish, to the point where I think we got like not one, but two commercial breaks around it. And I thought they were going to be dead last. They were coming out of the detour. They, of course, make the perhaps most unrealistic wish besides world peace of wishing they would win the leg. But they
which we had already seen teams check in at this point.
Yeah, but they at least made a shot for it when Andrea is able to like do super well. I mean, I really love this dynamic because Andrea really is like the tough love person of like, she is so dry, I think, and like very down to earth, as opposed to Malaina's kind of all over the place, that Andrea very much needed to be that presence to be like, Malaina, shut up, pick up the eel, we got to do this. And it's what they needed to do, and it got them out of last place into a respectable 7th place finish.
Now, we've talked about how a lot of these teams have had like topsy-turvy runs. They've either started hot or gotten hot. This is the one team that has been sort of like lingering towards the back of the pack the whole way through. They've been 10th, 9th. This was actually their best finish of the season so far in team 7th place.
Lucky number
10.
7.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, Jess. What do you think about Andrea and Malaina here? Because while they have moved up, they are still always consistently in the back half of teams. Their highest finish was in that when they were on that first flight in the first leg. Do you see legs for them to go further here?
I think they've got a shot. I like the energy they bring. They have two very different personalities and skill sets. Maybe I'm just making excuses for them because the Oracle of George said he liked them for winners. But
we love a Philly team.
Yeah, we love a Philly team.
Always.
I mean, not always in sports, but
well, yeah, in sports.
I don't know. Philly's doing pretty well right now, so
they do not seem,
on Sunday.
Andrea and Malaina do not seem like the sorts of people that would throw batteries at Santa Claus.
Yeah, and we would never boo them. But let's see. Andrea and Malaina, like that back of the pack is getting closer and closer. I think they need to like make their move pretty soon. Okay. After Andrea and Malaina is Greg and John, who I had very high hopes for. Greg and John, even they were like reminiscing, like, remember when we used to be at the front of the pack?
I love that. The salad days of us getting painful massages, finishing in 3rd place.
Yeah. Remember when we used to be like right in the front, and now we're bringing up the rear for the 2nd leg in a row as we have back-to-back 8th place finishes.
But at least they're having fun. You know? I love the musical interlude about the slimy fish. That was a really special moment.
Yeah, I really did like singing through your pain, I think, as John said.
Yeah. And this was it Greg that was looking for the photo that they were trying to match?
He was absolutely like exhilarated when he found out what the roadblock was. And it wasn't a puzzle. Again, I think the term puzzle is very loose when talking about reality TV, but this was definitely something more eye-catching. And while unfortunately he did not make as nearly big of a jump as someone like Liam or Andrea, he didn't fall behind like someone like Joel. And so I do have to commend him for that. And so I do think that they have the skills to catch up. I think they had a lot of problems with the market task last week from a navigational perspective that made them fall behind, but they were able to at least maintain some consistency, whether they're in the front or the back.
Okay. All right. And what did they wish for, Mike?
Yeah, so Greg and John actually went for sort of a corollary to I Wish to Win the Amazing Race. They just wrote 1 million because they wanted to go super quick through it. And so they kind of, I wouldn't say they were sacrilegious, but they kind of just blitzed through the entire ceremonial aspect of the task and just quickly scrolled down $1 million and put it up into the rafters.
Now, that's got some room for some monkey's paw shenanigans. You just write 1 million on a piece of paper and that's what you wish for.
1 million what?
1 million
what?
Ants?
It'd be like if your wish was, what's your wish? And you say 3. What? How do you work around that?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll see if things are going to improve for Greg and John. So this is where it got really tense in the episode, where we're down to the last three teams. It was Lena, Victor, and Joel who were running through it. And for Joel and Garrett, they had a pretty strong leg up until this point. And Joel was really struggling with trying to find the matching thing. They were leading the pack when it came down to the delivery task. I would love to get your thoughts on the emergent gameplay of that Todd brought into the game of, hey, if I tell you the answer, if I tell you information, let me cut the line. That got brought back, and I do think that is now part of like the ethos of this season. I think we'll see more and more teams do that. This is thought of to be like a good idea. We didn't love it when Todd did it in the first leg. Did it make sense for Joel and Garrett?
This makes no sense whatsoever. It's like, okay, first of all, Todd didn't invent this. This has been going on since the dawn of The Amazing Race.
No, they call it pulling a Todd. This is the Dr. Will of The Amazing Race.
Yeah, there's no Todd rules. Okay.
Todd rules.
Well, I have a feeling your whole family's going down.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what else is going to happen here? Everybody has to get the same thing and walk it to the same place in the same direction. What is Joel actually offering them here?
Mm-hmm.
Is it like he's going to go there? They all have to go that direction anyway. They're going to be following him no matter what.
Yeah.
I don't know that he has any tradable goods here.
Does it build some rapport in like they're going to like you are correct. They're going to follow him anyway once he comes out. Once they're like looking around, like which way do we go? And like, oh, follow Joel and Garrett. They know where they're going. Like, does it sort of like build some goodwill here in an interaction that potentially could have like maybe gone sideways?
I could see that. I mean, Joel vocalized it as like, this is me paying back Todd for that. And I do think apparently in a season where people are like picking apart the most minute interactions as to whether or not you can work with someone ever again, like,
yeah,
I think that could mean something. I think from Jess's point, it would be better if there was like another set of stairs they could go down. It seemed like they all went up and down the same flights of stairs to get in and out of the hotel. If there was an escape route, being in that lead position is great because then you're not caught behind all of these teams struggling to get the mattress up. But if you're just going to go back the way you came, we saw this with Rob and Corey, like they were kind of stuck for a little bit, having to rely on Todd and Ashley before they could squeeze by.
Do we know if the teams know that there's going to be a U-turn vote on this season of The Amazing Race?
I don't believe they've been told, no.
So they've been told that the U-turn is back. I don't think they've been told specifically that the U-turn vote returned.
Yeah. So I wonder if there's like they're looking at these opportunities to sort of like build some trust or goodwill with the other teams, knowing that there could be a U-turn.
I can certainly see a case where you could make it much worse. Like I think the neutral and the helpful are kind of on the same plane here, but you could certainly turn this into a thing and make people turn against you. Like if you said, hey, we're doing our thing, how dare you follow us? And created some animosity there. I think you could make it worse for yourself, but I don't think that actually going out of your way to be helpful does you any good.
To the point you made about Liam and Yeremy, Rob, I totally thought these guys were done. We were getting so much personal stories from them. Obviously, the wish they made was like, they hope their families are going to be doing well. And this is where they chose to open like, hey, open this letter on the best day you've had on the race. I mean, now in retrospect, the fact that they came in third to last kind of
opened it a little early.
Yeah, they're like, all right, well, I guess we should open it now. But they get this very sweet thing where they essentially read loved ones' letters on The Amazing Race. We find out that these two got very busy back in Idaho. Joel has like 4 kids. I think Garrett has 5, if I was counting correctly by the picture, or maybe I quarried it.
I mean, that's Idaho. Everyone has a lot of kids in Idaho.
Kids and potatoes. That's what they're known for. But yeah, I very much thought that this is going to be the big story. And we'll get it even more so with Jocelyn and Victor. But like, these guys were on the first flight going into Vietnam. They fall so far behind during the market tasks and everything going on with the rice paper. And then they end up finishing in last after we see so much about them. It made sense. But again, they are probably my favorite team of the season so far from a personality perspective. So I'm really happy that we didn't end up losing them.
I have a question about Garrett, because they showed the pictures of the families. They show Joel with his family. Then they show Garrett with his family. In the picture, Garrett is clean shaven. Did Joel and or production ask him to grow some interesting facial hair in order to give them a hook for the Amazing Race?
I'll do you one better, Jess. I think Garrett's under witness protection. I don't think his real name is Garrett, and I think this is a fake mustache that he has to wear while being on national television.
Wow.
So nobody can be like, hey, wait a minute, that's the guy that saw me rob that place.
Mm-hmm.
I will also say, Joel...
Is that why they're wishing for everybody's okay?
Please don't come for my family. I will say, I adore Joel, and his heart is in the right place when he says, hey, my uncle went to Vietnam decades ago, and look at how much things have changed. It gives me shades, Jess, of Ian going back to Vietnam for the first time since he thought. I will say maybe not the best conversation to broach with your veteran uncle by being like, oh, Vietnam, you won't believe it now. While you were losing all your buddies to the Viet Cong, I delivered mattresses and looked for a tile. It's changed so much, Uncle.
Yeah.
Lord.
Okay. All right. There's Joel and Garrett, and maybe better days are ahead for them. All right. Then Morgan and Lena, another team that was looking real strong in the beginning of the race. Only in the last episode, they used the express pass, and then they were on the brink of elimination here by the back half of this mega leg.
Hey, you know what? You're struggling in a task. You know what would be nice to have at that moment in your back pocket? An express task, so you're not crying, waiting for your sister to possibly be the deciding thing between you being eliminated or not.
Yeah,
they could have gotten a first place finish with the express pass this leg.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, or at least like finish in that top group alongside. Like once you get there, just nope the hell out of it. That's an example of you look at the task and you don't need to try it. You're like, there are hundreds of these things here. Fantastic, I'm using it right here.
Yeah,
right
not
now.
to mention you know what the next thing is. You don't know you aren't wondering if there's another task before you have to get anywhere, if you or any obstacles to you getting to the mat, because the mat's right there. You can see Phil from where you're standing.
Yeah, and this also would have been, I think, the last task that they could have used it on.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that at least the wiki is designating the last episode is like a full leg. So I think this technically is leg 4.
So, Jess, do you have like a specific guideline for teams if they have an express pass to know when the right time they should have used it would have been?
I think it's anything where you are going to gain some significant ground from using it.
Mm-hmm.
And or if there's a point where you are falling behind rapidly for not using it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you want to have as many knowns as you can when you're putting that express pass down. Like you want to know that you're near the end of the leg, that you're not going to put down that express pass on a roadblock and immediately go to a detour that's 10 times harder.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to put yourself in that position. I think it's better to use it towards the end of a leg to keep yourself from slipping far behind. And it's better to use it if there's any question that you might be eliminated. You do not want to be the team that goes out with an amazing race express pass in your pocket.
And they used it on the first part of the last lap, right?
That's not the move, because you can make up time. There's plenty going on after that task. You could make up so much time.
Yeah, the way they vocalize it this episode, because they clearly had no regrets in the moment. They're like, we were dead in the water. And it's like, you kind of weren't. You just were impatient is really what it came down to. It was like you had to wait in line. You weren't really for it. You tried another place, had to wait in line. And you're like, we can jump ahead at this moment. And I talked about it last week, but I'll still fortify here, especially with Morgan and Lena nearly getting eliminated. You almost always want to use it defensively rather than offensively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So Morgan and Lena, they live to fight another day, unlike our last place team that we talked about. Jocelyn and Victor. They didn't they were down last week. They were at the back of the pack. They had a 10th place finish. I did feel like that they made up some ground in the market.
Yeah, they passed a couple teams due to Victor's encyclopedic knowledge of fish when he's just going through it being like, that's tilapia, that's carp, that's some fish I've never heard of. And so they were able to, Victor predicted it. He's like, we don't have to be one spot ahead of last. We should be 2 or 3. it was just this roadblock that
Mhm.
really ended up becoming their undoing. I mean, to Jess's point at the beginning of this podcast, I'm stunned. I truly am stunned that this happened. It's one of the biggest first to worst that we have ever seen in the history of the show. And it makes me so sad. And my heart goes out to Victor, who is like clearly very pained, feeling like he was the one that blew it for this team. I'm just still so surprised that they had such a rough fall in Vietnam to the extent that it got them eliminated.
Yeah. It was really just two disastrous parts of the mega leg, culminating with just Victor not being able to find the task. I feel like a lot of teams go on the Amazing Race to test their relationship. I do feel like that the bigger test of the relationship comes after the Amazing Race. Not that Jocelyn and Victor were trying to test their marriage, but I feel like that it must be very stressful to like go through, like you went and you did a thing and one partner of the team like was responsible for, okay, this is why we didn't end up moving on any further, and then you have to sort of like, the team has to like live with that conflict for the rest of their lives. And I feel like that it's probably like very stressful in a lot of relationships. I'm sure it's fine for Jocelyn and Victor. They seem to have like very healthy ways of dealing with each other, but I feel like that I would love to hear like more teams, especially like romantic teams, where one team ends up being the cause that they go out. Talk about what that's been like.
This is a time when I wish we spent more time doing deep dives with Amazing Race teams, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like there's got to be at least one team out there where it might have even been a catalyst for breaking them up.
Yeah, we see many relationships don't survive the Amazing Race. What I found so interesting about Jocelyn and Victor is compare the end of last week with the end of this week, where last week they're leaving the rice paper detour. Jocelyn's like, okay, well, it was good while it lasted. And Victor's like, no, pick your head up. It's not over yet. Cut to the end of this week. Now, due to circumstances, Victor's the one that's like, I'm so sorry. This is the end for us. And Jocelyn's like, it's okay. We had fun. We're not going to quit. We're never going to quit. And to see how much they flip-flop positions, I think does show as like a symbol for the strength of their relationship, that both of them could fill that role at any point in time to counteract the mood that their partner's in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Victor had some negative self-talk. I feel like that was making me start to worry about Jocelyn and Victor, that he was like very much being very hard on himself while he was going through it. And ultimately, they did come in last place. But again, looking forward to getting to chat with them tomorrow, because they were just super fun to have here in season 35.
Yeah, and they were also an unlikely front runner. Again, I think by average or combined age, they are the oldest team on the race. I think if we had done a draft, I would imagine, to a point we've made several times before, they go fairly low because like they are, older married couple. They don't seem unathletic, but clearly they are not like hitting the gym a la Joe and Ian as much due to their own occupations. But what they were able to prove in those first two legs surprised all of us in such a happy way. And again, goes to show how skills can really elevate you no matter who you are or where you come from in the Amazing Race. And even though it was a short time, it was certainly a good time with these two.
Okay. All right. Where are we headed to next?
Headed to Jaipur, India. And this is exciting because we've had some really memorable and interesting legs in this particular city. And I'm hoping to see the return of a couple of tasks that I've seen on other versions of the Amazing Race. There's a particular fort with a bunch of stairs that's kind of an iconic site in Jaipur. And there was a task on Amazing Race Australia where they had to go up and down the stairs a certain number of times and get to the guy with the clue in a certain number of steps. And it was complicated math, and some teams were there for hours. It might be a little bit too much of an ask for a US Amazing Race season to do it, but I can always hope.
Okay. This season of the Amazing Race, we started in Thailand, went to Vietnam, went to India. It seems like that we are heading across the map from west to east. Do either of you have a preference? Is that okay? From east to west?
Yeah, we're going from east to west because that's usually we go from west to east, but on occasion, Amazing Race 10 is another example I can think of. Jess,
I'm just looking at the literal map, and we're on the map. Like, I guess that we're in the east going to the west. Like,
Yeah, well,
Either way.
I
Going
only say that
around the
'cause-
world from Asia first.
Yes.
yeah, that I only say that because
Do-
I know that we're going to Europe after this.
Do either of you have a preference of which way they do it?
It's down to, well, it's usually down to what season of the year they film in.
Mhm.
I feel like the time of year is kind of the reason
Yeah.
why they sometimes go in the opposite direction. I think killer fatigue is a lot worse if you're going in a westerly direction.
Mhm. Yeah. And we
and
spent
you
so
ha-
much time in Europe in the
Yeah.
last two
So that-
seasons also.
That's what I was going to say. For me, it depends on what happened in the season before. Because we haven't gone to Asia since The Amazing Race 32, I was welcome to it. And so I'm happy we initially started there. I think that was also something that was very much intended by the producers of like, hey, let's show again that we are back to our old school ways by going back to Asia for the first time in 3 seasons. So
Mhm.
I've been enjoying it. I always enjoy when they shake it up. Again, I really liked Amazing Race 10 where they did shake it up and decide initially, okay, we're just going to go straight to Asia, which up to that point was usually more reserved for the end game countries. So I like it. We are going to finish in Europe, it seems like, or get close to it, which is usually what we've seen the past couple of seasons do. But
Mhm.
I'm happy with the start. It's been very unique considering what we've gotten the past couple times.
Okay. All right. Anything else about this edition of The Amazing Race?
I just want to marvel again at the fact that 3 years ago we didn't even know if this was ever going to be possible again, and now we
Mhm.
are getting like straight up original flavor Amazing Race, and I'm just so grateful that we get it.
Mhm.
Oh, let's put in one final prediction because Phil, and he's never one for exaggeration, he prognosticates an ending you won't want to miss at the end of next episode. What do we think that entails?
I think a race to the mat. What do you think? You think it's something like more dramatic?
Yeah,
was-
I think it's a foot race.
I was trying to think if there's going to be a Matt proposal, but I don't think we have any dating couples.
No, we don't. I think they're all already engaged or they don't have that kind of relationship.
Hmm.
This is hyperbolic. This is the most dramatic rose ceremony ever. This is going to
Yeah.
be nothing.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's probably just like a close finish, but we'll see.
Or it could be a team gets eliminated on a penalty or breaking the rules. Could be another ending that you don't want to miss.
Okay. All right. We'll find out next Wednesday night. In the meantime, we'll have exit interviews for The Amazing Race coming up on Thursday. Jess, what else is coming up for you?
Well, we are done with The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, and we are moving on to Fear the Walking Dead's final season half,
Yes.
which is premiering this Sunday. And of course, AJ Mass and Chappelle, and sometimes Josh Wigler and I get together to talk about all things Walking Dead, because speaking of things that will never die, this show will never die. And of course, after that, after we finish Fear, we're going to go right into Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, or as we're calling it, The Walking Dead Towel.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's all happening over on Post Show Recaps.
Anybody want a towel?
It took me a second to get
You're
it.
the worst character ever, Towley. I know.
All right. All right. Well, great job tonight, Jess. And then Mike, what's coming up for you?
Well, you're gonna need a towel because I'm fully immersed in CBS
Oh my
reality at the moment. So
Gross.
obviously, I'll be talking with Jocelyn and Victor tomorrow for Parade. I'm also doing exit press for this week's Boots on Survivor, Big Brother, and I'm talking with all 8 finalists from the Challenge USA Season 2, which is finishing up coverage this coming
Far cry
Thursday.
from last season.
Yes, exactly. And then additionally, Rob, I got together with you as well as Puya and Frail Mary to talk through a 75-minute episode of Big Brother. We thought for a second it'd be 90. We thought that it would match its siblings in The
Nope.
Amazing Race and Survivor. Not just yet, but we had a lot of fun getting to all those superhero shenanigans. The B&B, we had Beth Dixon on last week. We will have the aforementioned Frail Mary on this week to talk through the Survivor swap, much like the positions on The Amazing Race were swapped in this season. And then, of course, post-show recaps, talking Battlestar Galactica. I'm also on Cameo and on social media at a Mike Bloom type. And now I'm going to go get some shut-eye. I believe my mattresses are here, and they're probably covered in flop sweat.
Okay. All right. Well, this was a lot of fun to get back together with you both for some amazing race talk. Everything with this week's episode of Survivor, also up at robertswebsite.com, not to mention Big Brother, Buddy Games, everything else we're doing RHAPiswebsite.com/subscribe. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.